Antone Dabs to the Autism Little Learners podcast.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad to have you here because not only is your story really, really remarkable, but we kind of knew each other in high school.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yeah, so that we're just going to go right into it and start talking about the autism piece because that is, what I have devoted my last 25 years of my life to. So for me to know you in high school and then hear that you received the autism diagnosis as an adult is really intriguing. And I think a lot of people would be curious to hear your story, your whole story, but in particular, this aspect of it. So you
Yeah,
ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, I got questions listed. Okay, so you were given the autism diagnosis as an adult. How old were you and how long ago was this?
So it was about 6 months ago I had the testing done, and it seemed to take forever to get the testing back. I originally went in to find out if I had attention deficit disorder. We were convinced that's been something I've dealt with my whole life. And when we got the results back, which was earlier this month, there was no attention deficit disorder. It was autism. I'm a number 14. And I guess anything past 9 is in the autism. I guess I'm not sure how that all works, but I definitely had a diagnosis of autism, and I'm dealing with that now. That
Wow.
diagnosis, trying to figure it out still.
Yeah, what a, a shock in a way, I'm sure.
When I was told, it was very emotional. I was sitting in this chair right here in front of the computer and doing a Zoom meeting with the lady that tested me from the cities, Stone Arch Psychology out of Minneapolis, and it was really emotional. I got to admit, I shed a tear when I was talking to her when she told me. It just really hit. It really hit me in the feels. I don't know why, but it did.
Yeah, and how old were you at the time?
53. I was 53 years. I still am 53 when I was told I had autism.
Wow. Wow. So how did this all come about being tested for, well, I guess you said for ADHD. And then did they tell you they were going to also test for autism, or was that just kind of
Yeah,
embedded?
so they wanted to do a full testing on me for everything. So if I would have had any mental things going on, they would have an idea what they were. So I went there, and yes, I did a lot of testing on attention deficit disorder, and that also can autism can mimic that. So they wanted to get autism involved and test me for those things as well, and just all sorts of things. I even had an IQ test. So just I don't know why it's done that way, but that's how they tested me.
Yeah. So it sounds like they were really thorough.
They were very thorough.
Wow. So before you were diagnosed, did you know much about autism?
I didn't know a ton about it. I have a cousin, a second cousin. So I have a cousin who I'm really close to. His name is Eric Dabbs. Great guy. His wife, their son, their son, he's got autism, and he can't, right now he's nonverbal, I guess is what I'm
Oh,
trying
yeah.
to say. He's nonverbal. And I knew a little bit about that, but I didn't know, and still don't know a lot about that. It's a learning process that I'm in the middle of right now, trying to figure out more about my autism diagnosis.
Yeah. I know when we talked last week, you were kind of like, I don't even know what terms to use. I don't know, I'm just learning about this. And I
Yeah,
just
it's pretty
think of,
fresh.
yeah, what I don't know. I feel like if it was me, I'd want to try to consume everything. Do you get overwhelmed with that, or you just kind of go with the
So
flow?
one of my things I've dealt with my whole life is if I have an interest in something, I get hyper fixated on it. That's where I'm at right now with autism. And not just autism in general, just mental health. But autism,
Yeah,
I'm focused more on than anything probably, but just mental health.
that makes sense. And when you were first diagnosed, I mean, this was only a few months ago, but what were your initial thoughts and feelings? You said you were, a little shocked, shed a tear. How
Yeah.
else did you feel, and how did your wife, what did she think?
Well, so once we realized that that was the diagnosis, it shed a light on some of the things that I've dealt with. I've been married now 22 years. And it shed a light on some of the things that I do around the house, and things like that. I can't seem to make the clothes into the basket, the dirty clothes basket, but I can get them close to it. I don't know why, but the doctors seem to think that was part of my autism. And there's other things as well, but she has, we'll watch a movie, and when we're watching the movie, I have to have an iPad in my hand or a book in my hand or my phone in my hand, and I have to be stimulated by having multiple things going on. That used to bother her. And now she understands why I'm doing it. I'm stimming, and I guess is the term. And she's better about those things. She's never been bad about them, but she's more understanding now.
Yeah. Well, and I can see how someone, neurotypical brain would say, oh, he's ignoring me, or
Yeah.
he's not interested in actually watching this together. He wants to do his own thing, and
Yeah.
that wasn't the case. It was like you said, stimming.
Yeah, I'm stimming. Yeah. And that's one of my ways of stimming. Electronics or something in my hand while I'm doing something like watching a movie.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I bet there's like a lot of things you look back, and I think that's kind of maybe goes into my next question. When you look back at your childhood, your teenage years, what things made you say, "Oh, that makes sense now. This was autism."
Yeah. So I got like a little list over here to my right. One of them was, well, anxiety, I guess, is part of my autism. I didn't realize anxiety could be in the autism spectrum, but it's part of that, I guess, or can be part of that. And I've dealt with anxiety my whole life since I can't remember a time where I didn't have it. And I thought that was just normal how people felt, but so I've always dealt with anxiety, and not just your general type of anxiety. It's kind of, it's been severe. It's been really
Yeah.
severe. There's times where I haven't been able to leave the house, at panic attacks, have to run back home, all sorts of ways that anxiety has affected my life, with the worst probably being the sleep issue, not being able to sleep. And now we kind of know why my brain doesn't shut off too. It's that autism, it's really going, and it can really get going at night. But since I've a couple of years ago, I had kind of a low point, traumatic experience happen. Just a little over 2 years ago, I've started medication, and I haven't had an issue sleeping where I can't get to sleep now. So that's been it. One of the things I dealt with, and just some other things too. Eye contact is very difficult. I have a YouTube channel, and when I'm doing my YouTube stuff, I tend to not focus on the camera, even though that's not somebody there. It still feels like I'm talking to somebody, and
Yeah.
I have a hard time keeping eye contact, but I'm trying super hard to be better about that.
Yeah. Do you remember as a kid, did people ever point that out? Or is it too long ago and you can't remember?
Nobody pointed out the eye contact thing with me, but I just always felt different. I always felt like I was different than the other kids, that, just, I felt really out of place my whole life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know we're going to talk later about your book that's coming out, your memoir, but I know in there you use the word masking, and I don't even know if you know that in the autism community that's a big word, because
Okay.
masking can lead to more anxiety, depression, because you're
Mhm.
trying to fit in when your brain is wired differently. And so, now versus even when I started teaching, there's really a focus on, we're not trying to teach our autistic kids to be neurotypical. We're trying to teach them to be able to function. And, so like their play is not going to look exactly like ours. Their eye contact is not going to look like mine. And that's okay. And part of it is teaching the neurotypical kids that
Yeah.
it's okay. It doesn't mean he's not interested in talking to you. Just the brain is wired differently. So I just was wondering if you remembered any incidents, because back when we were young, people would have said, "Look at me when you're talking to me," or when I'm talking to
Yeah.
you.
One of the things that stands out is, and I have found out this is also one of my autism traits, I guess. I'm not sure. Again, I don't know all the right lingo for it, but one of the things is I talk over somebody.
Mm.
I don't mean to. It's just that my brain is going 1,000 miles an hour, and I tend to do that. And it isn't that I don't care about what they're saying. It's just that I can't really explain it. So I'm trying to not be that way. But I've done that since I was really young. I've gotten better with it. I still do it, but I've gotten better. But when I was young, it was worse. So that was something I was corrected on a lot.
It's something, okay, so you're corrected on when you were younger, and now you
Yeah,
don't really think about it to
yeah.
happen. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes
even
sense.
before my diagnosis, I knew that that was an issue for me, and I've tried to fix it, but now we know why I do it.
Yeah, yeah. So even if you know, when you know why, I would think it takes some, it relieves you a little pressure. Like, it's not just this fault in my personality. There's a
Yeah.
reason. Yeah.
So when I first was diagnosed, it was a shock, and I would say after the first 3, 4 days went by, I was actually relieved because I could look back and go, wait a minute, this explains so much in my
Mm.
life. I'm not crazy. I'm not nuts. My brain's just a little different. And I didn't realize that it made such that after that first 3 days, after the initial impact was over, it made such a difference. It was like a weight being released. And it also made me want to talk about it because I'm not embarrassed by it or anything. It is what it is. And there's so many
Yeah.
people out there struggling with this. And, I want to help.
And that's part of why I wanted to talk to you and put this out into the world, because I feel like you're in the position where you can really help people. Like, you went from not really knowing much about autism to boom, at 53, you're given the diagnosis of autism. And now you're willing to talk about it and learn about it and share how just getting that diagnosis has helped you kind
Oh,
of,
it's been a game changer.
yeah, be kinder to yourself even, you know,
Yeah,
and look
I can
back.
let a lot of things go.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so happy for you. Really. I mean, we haven't talked or seen each other since high school. We've been in touch a little on Facebook and kept up with each other's lives. But I told you last week when we chatted, I had absolutely no idea what your life had been like, even back before we knew each other in high school.
Yeah, yeah.
And your book talks about everything. So I keep saying his book. We'll talk about it in a minute, but it's his memoir of his whole life. And so it's not a book about getting the autism diagnosis. That's just a piece of your life. But okay, I'll get to that in a minute. I'm just so excited because I finished reading it last night and I'm excited to talk about it. But okay, so when you look back at your childhood, um, what things maybe would have helped you in school?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that. Nobody talked about anxiety then. They didn't, I don't even know if people knew what autism was then. I mean, it just wasn't something that was talked about. So it would have been great if somebody saw that I was having issues with the actual schoolwork and keeping focused and pulled me aside and got me the help I needed, but they just didn't do that back then. They just didn't do that. So,
No.
that would have helped. I think today it's probably a little better than it was, but I just needed somebody to pull me aside and get me the help. But I don't know that the help was there at that time. So I don't know. It's a hard answer. It's a hard question to answer because it's such a different time back then
Yeah.
than it is now.
Yeah. And, back then, I assume you're just thrown into a general ed classroom and it's sink or swim. It's not,
Yeah.
okay, he seems to be struggling with this. You talked about, um, sometimes it's hard to sit still and pay attention. And
Hmm.
then you're all of a sudden kind of like a problem child, or, you know, I think in the book you talk about the solution was to send you to a different school, and then that didn't work. So then hold you back and then hold you back again. And just
Yeah.
the mental impact that had on you to be older than everyone in your grade.
Yeah, by the time I met you in high school, I was 2 years behind. I was 2 years older than everybody else. And because of my mental state at the time being anxiety really bad and embarrassed about things I maybe shouldn't have been embarrassed. I was super embarrassed about being 2 years older than everybody else in my class. And I think I lied to pretty much everybody. I didn't let anybody know my real age. I was so embarrassed by it. And that all has to do with the autism and me not being able to do well in school at the time.
Yeah. And your needs weren't met to help you function and move forward and progress with your education. And back then, like you said, it's so different. The solution was just, we'll hold them back because a repeated year of whatever grade, that's going to fix it.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
And it's not the fix,
It's so
obviously.
crazy to think about that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was advanced in some ways, like reading and all that stuff. I was advanced. I was well past my grade in reading, but so it wasn't for a lack of having the smarts, I think. I just couldn't focus on learning. I just couldn't do it. But
Yeah. And you said the social piece caused you weren't sure how to interact socially. And so
yeah,
you're like, I'll be class clown. Or as you got older, getting into trouble, hanging with that group was a little easier than trying to figure out how to
yeah.
socially
I
interact.
didn't know who my people were. And I could, so because of that, I mixed with a lot of different type of groups. And like you were saying earlier, masking, I could make myself kind of fit, but it never felt right to me.
Yeah.
I was never comfortable in my own skin wherever I was, whoever I was hanging out with.
Yeah. You know, as an educator, I just want to, I know I wasn't an educator back then, but apologize for the education system for what you went through because
Yeah, it was tough.
it's not fair and things aren't perfect now, but I'm sure glad that they have changed and individualized support for people that need it. So,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
that's true.
Um, you did talk once about some of the sensory issues, and I think when we talked last week, you're like, "Oh, I didn't put two and two together on that." But you said like certain socks you won't wear because of the
Oh
feeling.
my gosh,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see this in here, but these are the socks right now that drive me crazy. So it's just the feel of them. I put them on purpose today because of that.
Did you?
So different types of fabrics and things like that, just they don't feel right on my skin. They just don't feel right. And then certain sounds,
Mhm.
if somebody chews with their mouth open, yeah, people probably get annoyed with that. But to me, it goes right through my brain. If they're chewing loud and
Yeah.
smacking, that's like a weird thing for me.
Yeah.
And then just overwhelming noises. So I don't like to go, which is odd. If you read my book, you'll see that I spend a lot of time in the bar, and that should be a place I'm really comfortable. Now, I can't handle the sounds and noises, and that's not my place. And I don't drink anymore,
Yeah.
for anybody who's watching. But yeah, sounds,
Yeah. And
feeling in.
yeah. And do you look back and think you've always felt that way, like as a child,
I did.
where you had those little sensory issues? Yeah.
Yeah. And I notice so much stuff that people don't notice. I notice little minute details. We
Mhm.
could be watching a movie and I'll notice like every little aspect of facial features,
Mhm.
clothing, accessories to their clothing. And I might find something that I don't care for in what they are wearing, and I'll mention it, or that I do like, could go either way. And they're like, how do you know? Why do you even who notices that stuff? But I do. I notice
Yeah.
everything. Even
Like,
driving down the road, I notice every little crack and everything going on around me.
wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So lots of like your visual sense is
Yeah,
hyperactive.
it's hyperactive for
Seeing
sure.
everything. Wow. Uh, wow. So interesting,
It's
to
weird.
hear it from an adult who can kind of look back and be like, yeah, this has been there since early on, but even now you're discovering like which things are related to autism and which things are maybe
Yeah,
just your personality.
yeah, right.
Well, what has this diagnosis changed for you then in the last 3 months, and what has it not changed at all?
Well, the main thing is, I can give myself some slack. with these issues I have. I used to beat myself up for over it, and I'm not doing that right now. I'm thinking to myself, this is okay. This is just who I am, and there's nothing I can do to change it. Embrace it. So I'm embracing all these little nuances that my brain has going on, and also trying to make it better where I know I can work on. I'm always working on things. I never would have got to where I was right now if I didn't evolve over the years. So, and that was evolving with those autism traits and anxiety and all that stuff without knowing that I had those. Whether I had them or not, I had to do something to get past them, or at least alleviate some of the issues I was having from them. But knowing what's causing it has really made a difference, and I can just go, hey, good job. You did all right in life,
Yeah.
considering everything I've been through, and cutting myself a little slack.
Well, and you, after reading the book, it looks like you accommodated, or you found kind of eventually your own kind of therapeutic things. Like at first, it was drinking that would maybe allow you to tolerate the noises in the bar because you're drinking. It
Yeah.
brings your anxiety
Mhm.
down, all of that. And then when you moved on to like a better, more functional path, a more healthy path, you talk about being in the woods and taking long
Yeah.
walks and how nature is healing for you, and the meditation in I can't remember the name of what you called it, but was it in St. Paul? Or
The Zen Center,
yeah, the
Zen
Zen.
meditation. Yeah, the Minneapolis Zen Center on. I know they're not calling it Lake Calhoun anymore, but
Yeah.
whatever they're calling it, Maki or
Yeah,
my.
Bade Makaska, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. And yeah, it's located right on the lake there, and I don't know what made me go in there. I know I was having some issues, and I instantly felt better within the first week of going there and meditating in those classes. I instantly felt better, and yeah, it's something I've done since.
Awesome. And I think you said one of the things that the diagnosis has not changed is who you are. You're the same
Yeah,
Antone, you know?
yeah,
So
exactly. It's just a better version of me knowing.
yeah,
It's one of the better things that's happened to me being diagnosed. I feel really good about it because it explains so much.
yeah. Well, and that kind of leads into my next question with explaining so much. So can you give us an overview, because you talk about this in the book, of going from a teenager and 20 something that was on an alcoholic, destructive path to an entrepreneur who built a wildly, wildly successful business from scratch in your 30s
Yeah.
and 40s?
Boy, how did that turn out? So I always had this like kind of entrepreneurial mindset a little bit. And I'll tell you, I guess so when I was really young, I wasn't holding jobs. I didn't have a career path, and I was living with my grandparents, and I finally figured out in my head that that wasn't the lifestyle that I could carry on for a whole lifespan.
Hmm.
So I had to figure out, I had to have some sort of career. And I don't know what made me pick it, but I liked cars and I went into the automotive industry and I started to, I was a mechanic. And I was always jumping around from dealership to dealership working on cars. So I was a dealership mechanic. And my brain started thinking, I just don't want to be around people as much as I thought. What can I do from home that would make it so that I could have a living? So I started straightening my life up. I was still drinking too much, but things started to evolve and change. And that was my 20s. And and I tell the story in the book as well, but somebody came into a dealership one time where I was working and they were doing an inspection on a car that I was looking at. And they were there on behalf of an extended warranty company. They were verifying the failure. And I thought, that's a pretty neat job. Maybe I'd want to be an inspector and just drive around to the dealerships. And I fell into that. And by then I had gotten married and I really started to slow down and become a family man, and I wasn't going to the bars like I used to. But it was early in my marriage, so I was still not perfect. I still was screwing around with alcohol and dumb things, but it was really changing at a rapid pace at that point. And I ended up start leaving the job as a mechanic and doing those inspections full time. And then it wasn't long after that that I decided to start a company. And it just kind of, I started out with the company name as Auto Nerds. And had a lawyer come after me. There was another company in Washington called Auto Nerds, and they didn't like me using their name. So I had to change the name to Lemon Squad. And it's lemonsquad.com. It's an automotive inspection company. I started that, and it just kind of blew up. And then my life turned into just the business, living and breathing that business as it grew. And that, so it was kind of like I just kind of flailed along for a long time and had an idea. And I tried a couple other things too that maybe didn't work out quite as well before Lemon Squad. But once there's a lot of luck involved when you start a business. You can have a great idea and it can work, but there's a lot of luck when it comes to that. I worked hard, but it was a great idea, but there's a lot of luck that it got as busy and big as it did. And
Yeah,
I flailed till I got it right.
I was gonna say the right thing at the right time.
Yeah.
You know, that's so great. And the recent news is that within the last few years, you've sold it and you stayed on as an employee, and now you are doing your own thing and trying to decide what your path is now, but hopefully
Yeah.
a less busy and slower paced path for you.
I don't know if my brain can handle that.
I
It's got to
know,
be a little bit crazy and fast, but
I know.
this Friday will be 3 weeks that I have been gone from Lemon Squad. That's a really big deal because I would log in to the system and check things and check numbers and graphs and charts and everything 7 days a week for many, many years. And not being able to do that has been difficult, but not as hard as I thought it'd be. I have this stuff that I've been doing with my YouTube channel. Lots of writing, getting ready for my book to come out. So in some ways, leaving when I left was a pretty good time to leave.
Yeah.
It gives me the opportunity to focus on things that I'm really excited about right now. And I want to help people. I want to push my book. And yeah, I think I'm in a great spot right now. I really do.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, I
excited.
do too. It's such a fun time to kind of come back into your life because looking back and reading everything you went through in between when we saw each other in like ninth grade and now is just, I don't know. You guys, I keep messaging Antone and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm halfway through the book and I just did not know what you've been through in your life. And, it's been kind of a wild ride to reconnect and hear what your life has been like. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
how do you think that autism and having a neurodiverse brain helped you succeed in your career?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. And I've given that a lot of thought. That hyperfixation that I do can be a real big pain in the butt. But it's absolutely what drove me to get Lemon Squad where it got. So hyperfixation and even the anxiety part, anxiety of failing. I've got a wife, I had a daughter, I have bills, and just the anxiety of failing was so strong that drove me harder too. So I think without having autism and dealing with some of the things that autism has me deal with, I really don't think I would have been as successful as I became.
Yeah, it sounds like your focus was just,
It was
well,
intense.
I know as an entrepreneur too, because I never set out to be an entrepreneur, but it's happened. And it's when you have a business, it's like it's your baby and
Yeah.
you want everything to be perfect. You want all your customers to have wonderful customer service. And so you put a lot on yourself and you work a lot of hours.
Yeah, I sure
I
did.
think that
And it
piece.
paid off.
Yeah, it did. It really paid off. Okay, this is a total side note, but I remember reading one of your blog posts and you said one of your kind of hyperfixations that you love are watches. Can you
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about that? I know this is off the cuff, but
Can you
oh,
see in the background?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've got a little watch collection today. I'm wearing my Tag Heuer Monaco. And I don't know where that came from,
No.
so there's these, excuse me, these videos on YouTube. There's some channels, Wristwatch Revival is one of them. And they can find this old watch that's been sitting in the ground for 50 years, and they'll take it apart, all the little pieces and stuff,
Oh,
and clean it and put it back together, and it's a functional watch again. But the process of going through it is so cool. And I don't know, I just always had a thing for watches, but it's taken on another level.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and they're all different. So the
Yeah.
ones I like to collect are either the ones that are self-winding, they're called automatics, and then the ones you have to wind. I'm not such a big fan of the ones that take batteries.
Okay.
I like the older, more classic, and the Rolexes, the Omegas, the Tags, the Grand Seikos,
Yeah.
all these different brands. They're different, but they're kind of the same. And there's just a lot of technology wrapped up in that little tiny little thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I just love them.
I should come to you then because I do have one watch story. You might like
Oh
it.
my gosh.
I haven't told you
Yeah.
this. So my dad had this, I don't know what kind of watch you call it, but it's round, it's not a wristwatch. And it had like a knob on the top that you'd wind.
Pocket watch
Okay, and then you press the button and it opens up like
opens
that.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pocket
Okay.
watch.
So
Oh, they're great.
the best thing ever from my childhood is we would go over to dad and we'd be like, please, can we do open sesame? And he would hold it. And we didn't know there was a button on the side, like we were too young. And
Oh,
he would go like this, or he'd have us do this. And we'd say, open sesame. And all of a sudden it would go and open up.
that would have been fun. What
And
a great
it's not
memory.
working anymore. So
Oh,
you should,
darn. Well, there's places that can help you with that.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah. But
that's a great
it
memory.
opens. But yeah, it's kind of one of those things like I didn't think about it until we were talking watches.
Yeah, there's my collection over there. And yeah, maybe I'll
But
do a video on my watch collection at some
you
point, a
should.
YouTube video. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'd love to watch that. Okay, so now what I've been alluding to the whole time, you have a new memoir coming out and you share about your life, your struggles, and your challenges growing up from a really young age. Um, I had the honor of reading this book and finished it last night, and I've told you this already. Wow. Um, your book, it's titled From Turmoil to Triumph, and the title is totally fitting. That's exactly what this book is about. And like I said, it's not about the focus is not your autism diagnosis. That is kind of later at the very end of the book. But if you kind of go into reading the book with that lens, you might pick up some of the things that you struggled with related to autism.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you in this book, you don't actually mention that diagnosis until the very end. Can you tell everyone about how your memoir came to be and what the process was like for you?
Yeah. So I have a friend of mine who had been bugging me for many years about doing a book. He thought I had a good story to tell just because he knew we'd known each other for 20 some years, and he saw that where I started out with in the time that he's known me, where I've come to, he knew me before my business and stuff like that. And he just always thought that I had a story to tell, and I didn't think I did. I didn't want that attention, and I didn't want people to think I was trying to be something I wasn't.
Mhm.
I didn't want to think I didn't want people to think I was looking for attention, because that's not what I was doing. But all of a sudden one day I kind of clicked that maybe I do have a story, and maybe I can help people with that story. And he only knew from the time he knew me to today, he didn't know what really was even before that, and how much more there was to it that he wasn't even sure of. So that's what planted the seed in it. And I don't really know what I just wrote. I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote.
Did you
Once
go
I got
like chronological order? Just here's when I was young and you just kind of kept going?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I did. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then I think of things that I forgot, then had to go back,
Oh, yeah.
and there's a lot of jumping around. And putting
Well,
it together in the chronological order was the hardest thing about the book,
yeah.
because you got to remember when things took place, and that's very difficult.
Oh,
And maybe
yeah.
some of the stuff isn't 100% accurate time-wise,
Yeah.
but it's close enough.
Right. Right. Yeah. You might not remember your exact age, but then it's in that general vicinity.
Did you remember the dam
Yeah.
sliding
Oh,
part?
yeah.
See, people that are listening to us right now have no idea about that.
No.
Did you go dam sliding ever?
I was too scared to do that, but I have jumped off the North Hudson Bridge many times. And my dad
Yeah,
even
yeah.
did it with us and I
Oh,
don't know when the law went into effect because I don't remember jumping. So you guys, if you're listening, we literally in Wisconsin jump off bridges into water for fun. So that's when we say jump off a bridge, we're really talking about jumping off a bridge. But I don't know, it's maybe 30 feet high, 20 feet.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
good
something like that.
with height, but so it is this bridge on a little highway. And then all the kids, the teenagers for many years in our town, they would just go sit on the railing. Everyone would be in swimsuits and then take turns jumping off. And it's funny because there's this folklore that you have to jump off. Which side is it? The west side?
The east side.
The east side. You have to jump off the one side. And if you go off the other side, you might get impaled by the remnants of the old bridge underwater. And I don't know if that's
Yeah.
true, but no one ever jumped off
Hey,
that
who's going to
side.
test that one out, right?
No, no way.
Yeah, and then the dam sliding we're talking about, just really close to that bridge, there is an actual dam that's part of the Lake Superior, and where this bridge kind of tie in together. It's just there's a bunch of water there, and there's a dam, and there's a way to go dam sliding where you drop in a tunnel and you slide through this tunnel really fast on your butt, and you go home with a big hole in your shorts in the back because of grinding on the cement tunnel on the bottom. But it was fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
I
fun.
watched a lot of people do it. I was too chicken, but when I was middle school, my dad would come over to the bridge and jump off with us.
That is
And
so cool that he did that. I didn't know of
yeah,
any parents that did that. That is,
right?
your dad
Right?
was special, man. He was a cool guy. That's
And
so
then
cool.
it's funny, my dad had a story. I think they even did the dam sliding when he was young in Hudson. It went
Oh,
that far
wow.
back because he talked about his brother getting in a fight at the dam when they were dam sliding with a guy named Rex. So just these little things from the
Oh my
past.
God.
But that was probably in the 50s. So yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. We'll have to talk more about the bridge. But okay, so your book, where can people pre-order it? Because it's on pre-order now, but
Yeah.
it's coming out very soon.
AntoneDabbs.com. ANTONDABBS.com. There's a
Perfect.
page there, yeah, for purchase, for pre-ordering the book, and then it'll start getting shipped towards the end of the month.
Awesome. I'm so excited to get my physical copy. And where can they find you online and social media? And I will definitely put all these links in the show notes for the podcast.
Yeah, so I've got let me see if I got it right here. I have a YouTube channel, guys, that I'm really focusing on, and it's youtube.com/ the @ symbol, ANTON_DABBS.
Okay,
So
perfect.
yeah, I guess it'll be included at the end of this video, but yeah, please come subscribe to my
Yeah.
channel. I just put a new video out that went out 45 minutes ago that talks a little bit about what we're talking about today. You might enjoy it.
Yeah. And I love it because you're just getting going on there. And so people can go and subscribe and follow you and kind of be there at the beginning as you continue to talk about all these things in your life. One of those things being autism. So
Yeah. I
I
think
am
going forward, that's going to be a really big part of my channel. So
good, good, because I feel like that is going to help so many people that feel like you felt, and maybe they will pursue getting testing and seeing if maybe that is what is going on with them, you know?
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, you guys. Antone Dabbs. I will put all the info either below the video, in the podcast show notes, wherever. We're going to plaster it everywhere so you can follow him. And I absolutely loved talking to you today. Thank
It
you.
was great being here. Thanks for having me.